Not a lot of people realize this, but when it comes to ancient mutants in Marvel, Apocalypse isn't the only one who goes way back in history. He usually gets all the attention because he's such a major figure, but there are others who are just as old, and in some ways, even more mysterious. And recently, there's been a growing amount of discussion that Marvel might be planning to bring another ancient mutant into the spotlight during the Mutant saga that comes after big events like Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. The name that keeps coming up in those conversations is Selene Gallio, and if that actually happens, it could add a completely different kind of energy to the MCU. Before getting into how she might show up, it helps to understand who Selene really is, because she's not your typical villain or even your typical mutant. Selene is one of the oldest known mutants in Marvel Comics, and her entire existence is built around survival. She's thousands of years old, and not just in the sense of being long-lived, but in a way that makes her almost immortal. What keeps her alive isn't natural aging, it's her ability to drain life force from other beings. That power allows her to extend her life indefinitely, so as long as she continues feeding on others, she doesn't really age in the normal way. According to her backstory, Selene was already ancient even when early human civilization was just starting to form. She was born more than 17,000 years ago in what is now Central Europe, and from the very beginning, people around her recognized that she was different. Instead of treating her like a normal person, her tribe saw her as something powerful and dangerous. Because of that, they made a decision that shaped her entire life. They sacrificed themselves to feed her, including her own mother, which set the tone for everything that came after. From the start, her story is tied to survival, power, and a very dark kind of dependence on others. The character itself was created by Chris Claremont and Sal Buscema, and she first appeared in the New Mutants #9. Since then, she's been connected to a bunch of major storylines, especially those involving the X-Men. She's not just a background villain, because she's often tied to powerful groups like the Hellfire Club, where she operates within the inner circle. And because of her age and experience, she's usually portrayed as someone who sees other characters as temporary, even though they might think they're important. That perspective is what makes her so dangerous, because she doesn't think in short terms. While most characters are focused on immediate goals, Selene is always looking at the bigger picture, sometimes spanning centuries. So if Marvel brings her into the MCU, she wouldn't just be another villain to defeat in one movie. She would feel like an ongoing presence, someone who's been influencing events for a long time without being noticed. There's also been some talk about casting, and one name that keeps coming up from fans is Eva Green. Even though nothing has been confirmed, a lot of people think she would be a perfect fit for Selene. Selene isn't just powerful, she also has this elegant and intimidating presence, and that's something Eva Green has shown in a bunch of her roles. She can play characters who feel mysterious and controlled, but also dangerous underneath, which lines up really well with what Selene represents. Now, when it comes to how Selene could actually appear in the MCU, there are a few different possibilities, and some of them tie directly into the bigger crossover movies. One of the more interesting rumors is that she might show up in Avengers Doomsday, but not necessarily as a straightforward introduction. Instead, she could appear as a variant from another universe, which fits with the multiverse direction Marvel has been exploring. And if that's the case, it opens up a lot of creative options. If she's introduced as a variant, Marvel wouldn't have to explain her entire history right away. They could show her as an already established figure, someone who has been around for thousands of years in her own universe, and that would immediately make her feel important, even though audiences are just meeting her. It also creates a connection to Doctor Doom, because there are rumors that she could be working with him or helping him in some way. That kind of partnership actually makes sense when you think about it, because both characters are focused on power and control, even though they approach it differently. Doom is more about order and dominance, while Selene is about survival and manipulation. But those goals can overlap, especially if they're dealing with something as big as a multiversal conflict. So even though they might not fully trust each other, they could still work together if it benefits them both. And that's where things start to get really interesting, because introducing Selene in a movie like Doomsday would give her immediate relevance. She wouldn't just be a side character, she would be part of a much larger story. At the same time, her role could be limited enough to leave room for future development. Instead of explaining everything at once, Marvel could use that appearance as a setup for something bigger. After that, she could show up again in Secret Wars, possibly in a more expanded role. That movie is expected to involve multiple universes and a bunch of different characters, so it would be the perfect place to explore someone like Selene further. And since she's already connected to ancient history and long-term survival, she fits naturally into a story that deals with timelines and alternate realities. Beyond those big crossover events, Selene could also become a key part of the Mutant saga moving forward. Once mutants are fully introduced into the MCU, Marvel will need characters who can anchor that world. Some of them will be heroes, but others will be villains, and Selene could easily take on that role. She's not just powerful, she's also deeply tied to the idea of what it means to be a mutant across time. There's also the possibility that she could get her own standalone project eventually. Even though that might not happen right away, it's something that could come later, especially if audiences respond well to her character. Her story has a lot of depth, and it could be explored in a way that feels different from other Marvel projects. Instead of focusing only on action, it could dive into her history, showing how she survived across different eras. Looking back, Selene has appeared in live action before, played by Coda Eberhardt in Dark Phoenix. But that version didn't really explore her full potential, because she was more of a supporting character rather than a central figure. So bringing her into the MCU would be a chance to do something more with the character, giving her the depth and importance she has in the comics. And that's what really makes all these rumors so interesting. Because even though nothing is officially confirmed, the idea of Selene being introduced as an ancient mutant during the next phase of the MCU actually fits really well. That's all we've got to say for today. If you want to stay in the loop with all the latest movie and series news, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and show some love with a thumbs up. I'll be bringing you fresh updates on upcoming films before they even drop, so make sure you're locked in. From royal, high-level DCU and MCU breakdowns to the quieter rumors that don't always make headlines but often turn out to be true, we cover it all. Keep your eyes right here, because if you truly love cinema, this is the channel you need to be watching.